It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill, and today is Reality Check's 50th episode. Jess and I were like, what do we talk about? 50 is a milestone, right? Like we need to do something good. And we were kind of like strategizing and brainstorming, and we're like, we talk metabolism and hormones all the time. That's not like unique. And then we were like, do we do something really fun, which we know you guys love? But this, I feel like, is a different vibe than all other 49 episodes, honestly. This one's a little bit like deeper, and we'll kind of share the notes on this topic that we have and really like what our thoughts are, but also weave ourselves into this a little bit because I think as coaches, professionals, whatever, in the health and wellness space, a lot of time the expectation is just that like things are easier or that we've always been this way or whatever the case is. And we have had to go through a lot of transformation ourselves, personally, professionally, all of the areas. So this episode, as the moment that we're recording it, doesn't really have a title yet. We'll find it in here today, but it's really about like the hidden grief that comes with going through like a transformation, going through a healing process. And especially when you're going through a genuine lifestyle change, you do have to step into a whole new, more elevated version of yourself. And that old version of you dies. And sometimes we feel a lot of resistance around that. And that's what this episode is about, is really why that happens, what those reasons are. If you feel resistance, I've had people who even say like, every time I lose the weight, I almost like sabotage, and I don't know why, right? It's almost like I see progress and I'm like, oh, well, I should go celebrate. And there's psychological reasons behind things like that happen. And that's this episode. And if you have followed me specifically on social media, you've all seen a lot of versions of me. And even since over the last couple of years, but when I think back to when I first started posting on Instagram to now, I'm like, oh my God, who even is this? She doesn't exist anymore. She is so far gone. It's not even funny. So I think this.
But that's scary. Like it's scary to say goodbye to an old version of yourself and step into a new identity. I struggle with that a lot. I think Jill is very vulnerable and open. Like, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. I am who I am. And other people, it doesn't matter. Right. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to seem inconsistent, but I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm changing. Right. But yeah, change is really scary. Becoming a new version of yourself is scary. There's things that may just feel like comforts because it's all you've known your whole life, even though you know it's self-sabotaging. Maybe it's a comfort thing. There's other things that might be scary because you're making up these imaginary scenarios. Maybe you're going to lose people because they only hang out with you in these certain environments where you guys are centered around unhealthy foods and drinking, right? Or maybe like they might not even be real scenarios that you're going to lose these people, but in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, you're scared of, oh no, what if people don't like this new version of me that I'm becoming, right? So we kind of get in our own way. So we want to talk about like the psychology of identity and behavior change. And then we also want to talk about like systems that you can set up and ways that you can make change easier on yourself, because change is hard. It's different. It's going to be outside of your comfort zone. If you want different outcomes than you've gotten before, you're going to have to do different things than you've done, and it's going to feel weird. So we kind of want to walk you guys through all of those steps, the steps of grief when you are saying goodbye to your old identity. And also some of like how we walk clients through this. We don't do it in a way of like, I've just seen a lot of
talk and need to change.
Not that, but also I've seen a lot of coaches that are very like rah, rah, woo, woo, like burn that old version of yourself. Let's write it down and throw it in the fire. And it's like visually that might help some people. I'm not poo-pooing that, but psychologically, what that does is it allows you to say, oh yeah, I'm telling myself I'm a new person. Then I'm not internally competing. My inputs now can be aligned because I don't have this tug of war going on in my brain with who I think I am, right? If we can start to speak it and say, I'm a healthy person who likes to work out. Even if you don't believe that you like to work out yet, your actions start to become more congruent with that. So we kind of want to talk about it from a psychology and behavior change standpoint, because there's something to it, even though sometimes the way it's presented might seem really fluffy and silly. there's something to it. So the way we
Yeah,
tend
I
to
think
walk
that
our
like
clients through this is not in telling them this is what's happening. It's more so walking them through changing their habits little by little. And 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, they're like, whoa, this is a whole new version of me. I would have never just done this. I would have never packed broccoli with my lunch because I'm like, I haven't had a vegetable today. That doesn't feel good. And now I just did that. And that's just my habit. Like, I can't believe I'm this person. So oftentimes with our clients, what happens is it's happening. They don't know it's happening. And then they look back and they're like, wow, cool. It was a nice, subtle transition. It wasn't like I needed to just rip the Band-Aid off and jump in the pool. That didn't make any
yeah,
sense.
I think that's why
Yeah, I
we
just said.
take the Band-Aid off and jump in the pool. That is the new motto. That is the, maybe that's what I'll call this episode. Who knows? But I think that's why we like nerd out so hard about the transformation with our clients, and why, speaking for myself at least, that I do what I do, because health obviously matters, right? Like, we have this vessel that carries us through this lifetime. We have to honor it, take care of it, respect it, and it gives us a lot in return, right? But I think that there's so much psychology that goes into being consistent, showing up for yourself, doing things that maybe you don't want to, but it serves a greater purpose, and going to the gym and doing hard shit that you didn't think you could do before. Like, there's so much other benefit other than just having a better physique and building muscle and whatever, right? Like, we know the health benefits, we know the hormone benefits, we know we can look hotter doing these things, but it goes deeper. And when you're on a health journey and you're only focused on scale, on weight, on physique, you're stuck. But when someone comes to us, like the women that truly graduate from this program, they typically don't even reach, honestly, the physique goal that they had in their head when they came to us. But they know exactly what they need to do. They're living their best life. They're healthier than they've ever been. Sure, they get physical results, but their perception changes because they start to value life more, and they start to value being happy and feeling joy and laughing and just being present with their family. They start to value that more than what pant size they are. And that's when you know you've truly made that evolution and allowed that other version of yourself to die. But I think you have to, and this is the final disclaimer before we really dive into this from me, but you have to be prepared that those screw ups are part of the process. Like, you are going to fail and fall flat on your face. You're not just going to make these little baby steps and they're all going to stick right away and everything's easy, and it's going to suck. You're going to have weeks, maybe even a month, where you're like, I'm not feeling this. What am I doing? And yeah, sure, there are like strategies to continue to show up for yourself, but you have to go in and be open to that. And gosh, like, I think about bodybuilding and, all the therapy I did. Like, there's so many different tools out there that you can use. And I think what was really cool, I shared a lot about like my EMDR therapy experience last year. It was a very hot topic on my social media. People still ask me about it. And it was really cool to get to a point in that. I don't think I healed every trauma, every problem that I ever had in life, but the things that I did work on, I realized when I presented in therapy, I felt so neutral and so grounded that I was like, oh my God, this is what it feels like. So I just like journaled and did all my stuff. And I realized that like last couple of years were a shit show. 2023 was genuinely, like, if I look at it from a broad perspective, it was a year of healing. And this year is very like grounded. And if you're like, you like our woo-woo human design stuff, my projector energy says that like years 30 to 50 are like, I've paid my dues, I've learned my lessons. Now I get to like show up and be me and be the best version of myself. And that does not hold more true than it does like today and forward. So I think it's really exciting to feel like I'm almost on the other side of like this process. And then to be able to talk about this topic today is very fun. So let's dive in.
Cool. Okay. The psychology of identity and behavior change. I just thought of another, sorry, I'm already on a tangent. We haven't even barely started. Here we go. I'm caffeinated. So I also was thinking when you were talking about the transformation of our clients, and like, you have to be really open to messing up and doing something not properly while you're learning, right? I think some of the value that they get out of working together, or out of anybody starting a resistance training program, is you learn that you are capable of doing hard things. Like, your inherent self-efficacy starts to improve because you see like, wow, I can do something I thought I couldn't do before that. And that confidence radiates into other areas of your life. It is not about, wow, I barbell back squatted for the first time. It's about, oh my gosh, I just did something I thought I couldn't do. I wonder if there's other things like that in life that I could also maybe try. And it gets you to this point of stepping out of your comfort zone over and over again and improving your confidence little by little too. So you're changing in that way, literally just from the act of, I'm going to try something physically hard on my body. Like there's a big value to that also. I don't think we put that anywhere in the episode, so I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, so our brain does not like uncertainty. We are always trying to stay safe and to reel ourselves back to this state of homeostasis. So we like stability. We do not like change or different things. So if you are somebody who always has these bad habits, even like stress or anxiety, if it's familiar to you, even if it's not healthy, that's where you're going to revert back to, because that is your comfort zone, right? You see this a lot in people who grow up in maybe chronically stressed households as children, right? Somebody who grows up in a maybe a verbally abusive home, they end up drawing themselves to more dysfunctional relationships because that's what they know. Not because it's what's healthy for them, right? But it's because there's some comfort in the known, right? Versus the unknown. Why is this important? Because unknown doesn't mean bad, right? But that first bit of stepping out into something that you aren't familiar with is going to feel a little bit weird, right? It's going to feel a little bit awkward. So it's kind of like going into something that is no longer predictable for our brain. Our brain doesn't like that. It's sending a little signal saying, "Uh-oh, new. This is risky," right? That's kind of like step one. So we want to kind of like let go of our old patterns, but also knowing that there's going to be a little bit of discomfort in it. The second piece is this level of cognitive dissonance. So we have like, if I'm saying, I really hate working out. I really hate working out. Oh, I'm not an exerciser. Every single time you get ready to be like, I should go to the gym. Oh, I better go. There's this mental tug of war happening because you're fighting with your own internal beliefs about yourself. Something as simple as changing your language can change that cognitive dissonance so that you are more aligned. Okay. So by speaking like the person that you want to become, you can lessen that friction in your brain. So by saying, you know what, I'm becoming somebody who likes to work out. Again, even if you don't like it, just by saying that, you are more likely to actually make the inputs and show up for yourself. This is where I really like giving clients sometimes homework of journaling. And it's like, again, it's not, some woo-woo. As soon as it goes on paper, it becomes your reality. It's like, no, there's value to the more and more you start to say this and to think it, the more and more your actions then begin to follow. Okay. So easy task for you guys who are listening. If there's something where you're like, I always get in my way, I really want to change this thing. I'll use myself as an example. I talk about this a lot. Like my biggest health challenge is my sleep. I'm terrible with my sleep cycle. I overcaffeinate. I'm on screens too late at night. If I am constantly on this podcast saying, oh, I'm a really bad sleeper. Oh, I struggle terribly with insomnia. My brain isn't then like, oh, I'm going to start getting good sleep now, right? It would be effective for me to start saying, you know what? I'm working on becoming a good sleeper. I'm really working on having better habits around that. If I could say 3 statements like that a day over the next month, I guarantee my actions will start to follow because I'm going to start actually believing, and there's less of that tug of war in my head. So that's like action item, I guess, number 1 that you guys can actually take from this and start to apply.
Yeah, love it so much. I don't even know if I have anything to add to that. I just think hitting it home that your brain really likes that predictability. And like Jess said, even if it's negativity, I mean, you get in this like vortex of anxiety and I can't do this and I'm not good at that. And I've always perceived that as like, I don't know if people are going to hate me for saying this, but like the victim mentality a little bit. I lived with that for a long time. I very much thought I was dealt a shittier card than everyone else. Life is harder for me. And I made my life so much harder on me than it needed to be. And listen, people have it worse than I did. There's always going to be that. But when people would try to give me like the bright side, but it could be worse, but it could be this, I was like, no, let me wallow. And sure, I have my moments. A couple of days before my period, I'm wallowing for about something. But just generally speaking, I think the way that you show up is so important. And it really like I was in like mental battles with myself when I was going through that transition of like, you are not a victim. You can change this at any moment. And I think, like Jess said, I said that to myself so many times, and I didn't even realize the day that I just started to believe it. My husband actually says to me a lot, like, you know, he knows that like my biggest like philosophy or like thing in life is that don't complain about something if you're not doing anything to change it. Like there is nothing that will grind my freaking gears more. And because I had every reason to like not have the life that I have and be miserable and stay stuck, I had every reason to, because I can tell you based on brain and the predictability, it would have been easier for me to do that. I did shit and I made moves that I didn't know if I had a job the next day, I don't know if I had a house the next day, whatever. And I think survival mode plays a little bit of a role in that, right? Where you just got to do what you got to do. I'm a parent, whatever. But I really started to think like, actually, the level of delusion that I had was if you look at like Ed Milet or I don't know if Mel Robbins, right? Her history with like drinking and stuff, I think like these people that are on stage that make all this money and have so much success and they seem so happy, they all have like a I lived in the car moment, right? And I'm like, literally, I can remember, I won't get into details on this one night of my life that was very pivotal for me, but I was like, this is my live in the car moment. This is the thing that I'm going to tell everyone about one day, how I still made it to the other side. So like, I say that to not be super corny, but just like we all go through shit, and yes, everyone has different resources and whatever, but like your brain is so powerful to get you through things that you feel like you won't get through. And I'm so annoying in that my mindset is if you are awake and you are listening to this today, you made it through whatever happened yesterday. You made it through whatever happened for the last X number of years of your life. That is,
and you can own your
okay.
next choice.
Yeah.
You can own your next choice regardless of your circumstance. We're not saying, oh, you have to hit some sort of rock bottom in order to change and become. We're saying, hey, even in the worst of circumstances, people can completely make a shift. So you most definitely can make a shift in simple habits. Again, it's not easy. It's not easy, right? But it's very, very doable if you are allowing yourself to step into some discomfort of things that you're not used to.
Yeah. And telling your brain it's okay, it's good, you're okay,
Yeah.
you can do this, it's not a big deal. Delusion. I literally live in absolute delusion. I think everything will work out, everything is fine, everything is okay, and I actually believe that. And
I also think there's some power. So you have gone through a lot of therapy, right? We've got clients who actively are working in therapy alongside of our coaching to work on the deep-rooted stuff when they are maybe having food addictions or binge eating disorders and things like that. I think there's a lot of value in identifying where the behavior is coming from too, of, oh, wow, okay, when I grew up, this was my comfort zone because I had to hide from whatever the circumstances were going on around me, or food was the only thing I had in my control because of all these other things people controlled for me. Like there's a million different reasons that these behaviors start to originate. And I'm not saying, oh, we need to all come up with some deep rooted thing and say, oh, well, it's my mother's fault that I had. That is not the intention. The intention is to say, oh, shoot, I didn't realize that those patterns were rooted in this. I guess it's time to release that because my life isn't that way anymore. I'm a different person. I'm an adult now. I have autonomy over my choices. I don't have to go to that as my only comfort. Maybe I can find a new comfort that's healthier for me in this phase of life. Like I think there's some value to working with somebody. If you're in that circumstance of like past trauma, I think there's value to working with somebody so that you can name it and release it and let it go of this new version of yourself.
And you know, you have these like patterns and routines and habits and just ways of going about things. And, you know, I can't even think of a specific example, I don't think, but like women who are like, well, I just like don't do that, or I've never been able to do that, or I've always done it this way. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't sell yourself short. You can throw those identities in the trash at any moment, but it does feel like a loss when you have your routine, especially like I was technically diagnosed with binge eating disorder back in like 2015 and 16. And I had this very specific routine of like starving myself. I would come home from work. I had even like a corner of my kitchen that I anchored myself to. And that was like, in my head, it was okay because I was like, I'm keeping it in this safe space. This bad behavior only happens right here. So it's not that big of a deal. I had to break that routine. It was hard because guess what? I fucking loved that corner of the kitchen, right? It was not a healthy love for that corner, obviously, by any means, but I had to break patterns. And this is where I was like, I'm going to just do all new stuff. The opposite of anything I would do. Instead of coming home straight from work, I changed into my clothes and I would go to the gym. I would go for a walk. I would go to the park. Anything else but go to that kitchen, that corner of the kitchen at that time of day. I even moved the snacks out of that corner because I was like, we're not going in that corner anymore, right? So it sounds so silly, but like I had to break those patterns and those routines. It's the same thing for like smoking or just any other a relationship that you keep going back to because you get a little itch, right? And you want to scratch it. Like those are the things that you have to be super in tune with. And it is not easy. And letting go of those old identities and patterns, it feels like a loss, right? It feels like a gut punch of like, even if it doesn't serve you in a healthy way, you're still having to let go of something and let go of comfort and familiarity, even if it sucks, right?
So the way that we approach this with our clients is very small step. It's not like Jill's explaining, okay, I'm going to overhaul it and I'm changing, right? Usually how we approach this, because it tends to stick better, right, is in very small little steps over the course of time. So I want to give some examples of really common ones that we see with clients. The person who is pretty dopamine addicted to running because that's their mental wind down time, right? And it's like, okay, but why? And again, for somebody who loves running, more movement is healthy, right? But oftentimes it is this need to be overstimulated, need to keep going. And it's hard to move that back and say, okay, we're just going to be still. We're going to allow your body to relax. That's an uncomfortable feeling that we see quite often. Another one is, okay, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and step foot into a gym, into a new physical environment that I'm not used to being in. And maybe I don't know how to do everything here. So I have to look a little bit silly at first. And I promise you're not looking silly. This is all in your head, right? But we're thinking that like, oh no, I might look ridiculous because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Those are some really common examples. Another really common one is for the person who comes to us and they are struggling and they've been obese for their whole life. How am I going to act around my friends when our activities together all revolve around unhealthy food? Like, I don't want it to seem like I'm that person who's trying to be on a diet now. And it's like, oh, we don't want to push that either, right? We want to start to incorporate healthier foods over time to the point where eventually you're like, wow, I can't believe how I used to eat like that because I feel so much better now. But I think that there's a lot of fears around, oh, this feels weird, right? If I'm slowing down because I'm used to going and running all the time, that feels weird. Or I have to change something when this is kind of my norm in terms of my social environment. That's really scary. So again, a lot of times what we're doing is little steps, right? Maybe at first you're not changing who you hang out with, right? Maybe we're just adding a lot of nutrients to your other meals during the day so that you can also go hang out with your friends and do whatever you would normally do with your friends. Maybe we're changing things in that type of way until eventually you're like, you know what? I think I want to bring a healthy dish to the game night on Thursday this time. And maybe I can influence my friends someday by doing that, right? So eventually you build that up. This is not like an overnight thing. So we've talked about this, but in terms of like the psychological phases of transformation, first there's the awareness around it, right? Like I know that I'm uncomfortable. Why? What is this coming from? Why was I doing that old pattern, even though I know it's not good for me? 2, the identity disruption. Okay, who am I now? This is weird. It feels weird. This is a new pattern for me, but I don't know. All of my friends still see me as that other person. My family still sees me as that other person, but I'm not really that other person anymore. So it kind of feels weird. I'm not really feeling like myself. I don't know who I am yet, right? And then the third phase is this integration of like really owning it, owning your choices and feeling good about it because now this is just part of who you are. You start to be open to your friends about it. I had a client just a couple weeks ago who was like, this was really cool because I've not really opened up to my closest people about all these changes I've been making. And I asked a friend if she wanted to go for a walk with me. And she was like, yeah, of course, let's go. And it was not even a conversation. It wasn't like, oh, are you trying to lose weight? It was literally just like, oh, wow, my friends would like to do these things with me. And I never even thought to ask before. A lot of times it's easier than we think once we get there. And that's not to say you might not outgrow people who aren't on the same page. You may, right? But oftentimes we're building it up and there's more anxiety in our head than there actually is when we start to do the new thing. So awareness, then disrupting that old pattern, then integrating it into your new life. Another like behavioral model that I like is like the learning, the 4 stages of competence. There's like a learning model where first we have unconscious incompetence. We don't realize that the behavior we're doing is even self-destructive at all, right? Because it's just what we've always done. Then it turns into, now it's conscious incompetence. Man, this is so frustrating. Why can't I stop drinking caffeine? I know it's not good for me, right? Why can't I do it? I'm conscious of it, but I'm still having a tough time. Okay, then it becomes conscious competence. Now I have to work really hard to do this new thing because I know I want to change and I know it's good for me, but it's really hard because it's new. Someday, the more and more and more you implement it with intention, it becomes easier, not because it's now you're doing more and more and more. It's because now it's actually an inherent habit. Now it becomes unconscious competence where you're like, oh, this is just the me. This is just the new me now. Now I pack broccoli
Just
with my
master
lunches.
yourself.
Now I wake up and I have some blueberries with whatever protein waffles I'm having instead of not having fruits all day, right? Like now this is just the person that I am. And that's when it becomes easier.
Love that. Yeah. And I think that identity disruption tends to be the hardest part. Like awareness, you kind of step into, and it's why I love coaching so much, because it's a very intentional starting point for a change. And awareness tends to happen pretty quickly. You know, all of the women I swear I ate healthy. And now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait, not so much, right? So then we start to sometimes we have to dial clients back because then they start to obsess a little bit because they're so in tune with the changes and the good and the bad. And it's like, hold on a second, one thing at a time. So that awareness is really cool that it happens pretty quickly. And you start to get into that like discomfort zone of like, we're starting to like nudge them out of that hole they've been hiding in. But that identity disruption, that next phase of like, who am I now, is really hard because you're now letting go of all of these old things, but you've not yet mastered all of the like air quote new stuff that you're doing, this new person, this new version of you. And it kind of feels awkward. You feel like a kid in a classroom for the first time, right? Like you're like, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know what to do. Is this okay? Is this a weird behavior to have? Is it abnormal, right? Because especially with like nutrition and dieting, like eating healthy is perceived as I don't like my body and I want to lose weight by a lot of people, right? Which is really sad that we've normalized that, but you're doing something that a lot of other people don't do because it's hard, right? It's hard to be intentional about that for a lot of people initially. So you're going through this like weird in between stage, like middle school, right? Where you're like awkward and whatever.
I kind of love that about our community too, because like we often see that people feel like they're on an island in their home life because nobody around them has kind of gotten with it yet. And then after a year or two, they're like, this is crazy. My husband eats healthier now and this and that. But usually in the first few months, they're messaging in our group with all the other clients saying like, oh my gosh, it's so sad the amount of women at Thanksgiving dinner who are talking about all their diets they're on. I feel so relieved that I don't think that way anymore. And it's like, they're fine. It's also healthy to find friendships or people who are kind of at a similar stage because it's easy to bounce ideas off of them, but they start to notice all the dysfunctional behavior around them with all the people who are obsessing over every single bite or are super restricting and not allowing themselves to have carbs or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I tell women that I talk to too, that like, a lot of times it's not always fear of failure that is holding you back. It's fear of success. Because if you're successful and you do master a new identity and you do step into a new version of yourself, it's a higher standard that you're being held to, right? There is no crawling back in that hole and doing nothing and shying away from the hard stuff because you're this new person, right? You have to hold yourself again on this like whole new level. It's harder. You have to be like Jess talked about the stages of learning, like you're mastering these new skills. It's challenging and your brain sees that as a threat, right? Even though we know it's all good stuff logically, it sees this as a threat. It's almost like we have this little devil on our shoulder like, hey, you can go back to this. You don't have to go to the gym today. You don't have to work out. You can have the drink, right? Even though you don't want one. You have all these like thoughts going through your head that are competing. And you have to quiet the noise a little bit and just know that that's part of the process. And that's good. That's a good sign that you really are stepping into the next version of yourself. And it's really, really cool. Like Jeff said, when we start to get those little wins of like, I asked my friend, I was so nervous. We went to happy hour and I told them like, hey, I really don't want to drink right now. It just doesn't make me feel good. I'm working on my sleep. And her friends were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I know you've been working with a coach and they were so supportive. And she was like, oh my God, such a weight lifted. I was so afraid to have that conversation with them because I didn't want to be pressured to do something I didn't want to do. And I also didn't want to like let my friends down and not have a way to connect with them anymore. Right. So you do have to decide in that process, are these people supportive? Is this environment supportive, which we'll talk about, but is this supportive of this new version of me I want to be? Or is this something I might need to distance or let go of because it's going to hold me back and keep me stuck? People will do that. If people in the office make comments about your meal, oh, you're eating another healthy meal, are you on another diet? They are projecting the fact that they can't and won't do what you're doing. You're doing the hard shit. They want to bring you back down to their level. It's not always conscious. They're not being vindictive, right?
Yeah, it's not it's a them thing. It's a them thing.
Total subconscious projection. So it's important when you recognize that, you're like, oh, I see it, right? And it starts to feel really good that you're on another planet than them, right? And that's really cool. And you should be really proud of yourself if you experience those moments, honestly.
So in terms of like why people get stuck in self-sabotaging, we kind of talked about the fear of losing connections with others, right? I'm really scared that because all of my friends are overweight too, right? Are they going to judge me because now I'm like, oh, I care about fitness? It's like, well, this doesn't have to be a superficial goal either. Your health is better. You feel better. Your knees don't hurt when you walk anymore. Like, let's focus on those things. This is not need to be a superficial thing, but the people who love you and support you will still love you and support each version of you. And this is not your job to fix them, but oftentimes they end up coming along with you when they see how good you feel, or they end up saying, wow, I've really been wanting to start feeling better, but I've been too scared to stop drinking. Or like oftentimes that ends up happening. So yes, there may be some people who are struggling in their own little insecure bubble. For the most part, the people who really love and support you are still going to love and support you. And also, I always tell clients, like, you are the only one who has to live with the consequences of your choices. These other people do not. So at the end of the day, I need to own my choices, healthy or unhealthy. I need to own them because I'm the one who has to live with the consequences, not that friend who's like, oh, well, you can afford another burger because you're so thin. Like, guess what? I don't care what that person thinks. They didn't see what I had for breakfast or lunch. They didn't see the ice cream I had last night. They're judging me based on their own insecurity. Let it go, right? So the fear of losing connection is one thing. Clinging to your old story. We talked about changing your language. That's another thing. Well, I've always struggled with my metabolism. Well, my whole family has weight problems. Like all of those things, you can change that language and then your inputs will become less and less resistant. And then they mistake discomfort, like we talked about, discomfort's normal, as a sign that they need to stop. Discomfort could mean growth, right? That doesn't always mean it's a scary risk. If logically you know this new behavior is healthier for you, you might have to live through some discomfort until it becomes a new habit that feels like the new norm, which takes time. So how to actually transition successfully into whatever this new identity is that you want to live in and thrive in.
Yeah. So I think there needs to be some level of auditing, but there's not this like certain moment. There's not this like checklist that you go through to see like what's good, what's bad. I really think this is a little bit harder to define. And obviously we'll both kind of share our perspectives on this because I'm sure you'll have a different angle here. But I think auditing the role of like that version of yourself, like what does she do? How does she show up? How does she act? How does she respond to these scenarios? But we had a couple of questions that are like reflective that I think were really powerful. And it's what did that version of me help me survive, right? Because again, like the things that I had to deal with in life over the years, that version of her, I'm very proud of her, right? Because she got me through some crazy shit that I'm like, no, if I had to do that now, I'd be like, no, thank you. Absolutely not. I'm not doing this, right? But like, in the moment when you're the word surviving, probably extreme, but we are surviving something that's different, right? So what did that version of me help me survive or get through or navigate that I'm really proud of? Like we can still hang on to that part of ourselves, right? It's not a full death. What did I believe about myself because of her? I believed that, that I wasn't ever going to master anything, that I wasn't good at anything, that I was just okay at everything. That was a belief that I carried for a very long time. Side note, EMDR is very cool to see where those specific moments started for you, if you're willing to be super vulnerable. But what did I believe about myself because of her? And what did others validate in me that I'm afraid to lose? You might not be afraid to lose it because it's good or it serves you. It probably is terrible for you, but sometimes other people validate those fears. And if you have a belief and somebody else somehow validates it, a negative thing about yourself, that's it. It feels like it's set in stone, right? And it's really hard to
could be a negative, or it could be a positive from the other people that you're like, oh, this is kind of like there's choices that I have made that I am ashamed of, right? Working through these questions helps me to be like, oh, I did those crappy behaviors because I liked the instant gratification of attention, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not the person I want to be. It makes sense that that's how I behave because, okay, that felt good in a moment. And that's not the type of person I want to be. So I think kind of walking through that and being like, oh, that's validation that I don't need. And I'm growing and I'm going to change because of that. And I don't like that version of myself. But it also allows you to accept it and not be ashamed of it. Because again, it's like, okay, I can explain this. I can logic it to myself, even though I didn't care for it. And then I can say, okay, I'm not going to be like that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I had like a little bit of mean girl energy for a long time. And it wasn't because I wanted to be mean. I would be sad after the fact in certain scenarios, but it was very much a projection of like a safety mechanism of like, if I'm mean, it pushes people away and then I can't get hurt by things. Right. And that's a very like deep example to give. And I won't go any further, obviously not what it's about, but it's things like that you don't realize you're doing. And essentially like psychology behind this is you're disrupting that automatic, like identity driven thing that you've always done. And you're breaking that pattern, right? And you're disrupting.
And you start to feel it happen. If you start to do it again, you're like, oh no, I'm reverting back to it because now I've identified it as.
But you have the awareness, and that's
so now I have and now it's that intentional. Shoot, I said I want to change this. I'm going to change this thing, and now I have to be intentional about it. But eventually, that can become the new you. So step one was auditing. How did that old me? How did that affect me? How did that play out? Step two. Creating a new identity anchor. So we're now tying ourselves to we're affirming these new actions that we want to start doing.
Yeah. Getting out of that default mode, right? Of like the things you've always done. And that's why when we're like Jess said with clients, we go through this in very small steps and stages. And I'm not talking about increasing your steps and whatever, right? It can be super small stuff or it can be really big stuff. But either way, we're moving through that process in whatever way almost feels more natural for the client, right? And this is why everyone's like, what do we work on? Or I need more information. I tell everyone this is like real-time adaptive coaching. You're going to present me with problems and check-ins, and we're going to navigate them as we go. I don't have a packet for you to read that's going to solve all your problems, right?
Because it's going to be totally different than somebody else's problem, right? For one person, it might be really healthy if they allowed themselves to have cake this week because they've restricted their whole life. For somebody else, man, what a healthy win for them to pick up a vegetable. I'm thinking of I had an example where a client said, you know what? This is crazy. She struggled with binge eating. I had a moment where I made box mac and cheese late at night. She would have like a whole pizza, box mac and cheese, stuff that she knew was going to make her feel crappy after. And she said, this is nuts. I started eating it and I realized this isn't even like a food that I love. Like the taste of it wasn't worth it. So I didn't finish it. And that in that moment is a win. Like it is not the fact that, okay, oh, I can't believe you didn't hit your protein goal or perfectly track your macros today. It's like, hey, the fact that you logically made that mental connection that, you know what, I don't even think I love that. Why don't if I'm going to have a food that's more indulgent, I want to really enjoy every bite. That's a huge win for that person's life, right? So a lot of our job as coaches is to make those connections on time out. Here's the little win here, because then we can snowball and we can build these little wins over time until that becomes your new norm in terms of your habits, until you're like, I don't even want the box mac and cheese because I don't even feel good when I have it. That might be her next step, but we don't need to get there overnight.
Right. Yeah. And that would be an inappropriate conversation to have with her with where she's at in her journey right now. Right. And that's why I tell everyone coaching, that process, if you have the right coach for you, you're gonna fall flat on your face. That is the point of coaching, is to say, oh shoot, here's my next roadblock and I have no idea how to navigate this, right? And that's why I love working with clients for like 12 plus months. We go through all of the literal seasons of life. We go through school change with kids. We go through summers with teachers, right? Where they normally have these awful habits, or maybe they have better habits, who knows, right? But we're going through all these different periods and it's like, oh shoot, here's the next roadblock. Then we want to go through all of those roadblocks, or as many as we can with this client, to at least give them the thought process of like, hey, here's how this is working here, here's why you're doing it, and here's how we might navigate it. And when we go through that enough, they can do that on their own. And that is the entire point of coaching, is that we successfully send them off to navigate life, feel good, feel empowered, make good choices, own their choices.
And they understand the outcomes of their choices, healthy or unhealthy. They're owning them and feeling really good about them. Okay, so step 3, where are we here?
So kind of building up that like tolerance to the discomfort without constantly 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right? Like Jess said, you made the choice, you're conscious of it, you were intentional, you owned it. Doesn't mean she's like, screw it, I already started my binge, I might as well finish it, right? Which might be where someone's at in the process, but just giving an example. But without that step regression of like, what's the point? Why bother? Why should I do this kind of mindset?
But it's okay to take, like, there's going to be slip ups. There's going to be moments that Jill said, you're going to fall flat on your face. If we take 5 steps forward and 2 steps back, we're still making forward progress. We just keep going. And that's part of it. And then eventually that discomfort starts to become, oh, this is actually my new norm. It's not actually that uncomfortable anymore.
And even if you take 1 step forward and 2 back, as long as you don't get sucked back into the vortex or woe is me, this is just who I am, we got to cut that tie, right? We have to have that awareness. We have to disrupt that pattern. That's regression. It doesn't mean you won't screw up. It just means that even if we fall flat on our face, that we're still going to go forward.
And then the last thing that you can do to really successfully change your identity, we always recommend the book Atomic Habits. Change your environment. Make your environment match the choices that you want to make. Make it match your new identity. If you want to become a more fit person, hang out around people who tend to move their bodies more, right? And it doesn't have to just be about people. Maybe if you want to make choices to have less junk food as often, don't keep it around your house. It will make those new choices easier for you, just simply based on your environment.
Love it. I feel like, so just a quick recap of like that transition, auditing that role that your old identity played, creating these like new identity anchors and kind of disrupting that pattern, disrupting that thought process, building up a tolerance, really just having more like awareness to the discomfort and still moving forward and knowing you're going to fall flat on your face and just having that knowledge and going forward with it anyway. And then just setting your environment up to match your new identity and support and reinforce these new patterns and behaviors and lifestyle that you're trying to create in whatever way works best for you. There's really not one set way to do that. Everyone's brain works differently. It might be, for me, it was like Oreos and snacking. For a while, that was just don't have it in the house, right? And I thought that because I was like, that's not going to solve my problem. But it did solve my problem in the short term. And eventually I built up that resilience, like, you are okay. You are good. I nourished my body. I fueled it. I navigated a lot of things. So again, just an example, but do whatever works best for you and set your environment up so that you can move forward successfully. And you're not losing the old you. You're just becoming a better version of you, right? You're just letting go of old behaviors, patterns, people that don't.
You're still fun. You're still fun. You're still a good time. You can still hang out with those friends and make different choices while you're out, right? Like everything in your life does not have to become uprooted. You're still you. Now you're a healthy version of you. So if you guys, I think whenever this podcast episode launches, we'll do this within our client chat. But if you guys are listening and you follow us on social media, please comment and maybe you can share what's your biggest story or identity that you're wanting to let go of. And or what's the identity that you want to work towards? Maybe start writing it down or say it when you wake up first thing in the morning. As cheesy as that might sound, your actions will tend to follow.
Yeah, I love when you guys message us so much and say, I love this episode. I want to hear more of this. This is what I learned. So use messaging us as your first step of like awareness and acknowledging, hey, I want to change this thing, because that can be super powerful for 2025 and beyond. So that was it for episode 50 of Reality Check Podcast. We hope you guys loved this little pattern disrupt of episodes, if you will. And that's all we have. And we'll see you guys next time.